Um, what was that?
Rolling up and down again. That's all the stars in the world. 7, 6, 11, 5, 4, 17.
28 Years Later is the highly anticipated threequel, preceding 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. Danny Boyle returning to direct, Alex Garland is writing, and has got to be my most frustrating experience in the theater this year. Now, before I get way too into it, okay, I need to preface this review by saying the previous two movies, loved them. 28 Days Later reinvented the genre at the time. 28 Weeks Later took the formula that 28 Days Later had and, in my opinion, elevated it. It's really great, a really great follow-up. So, I get it, right? I get it 100%. It was never about the infected. It's about the human condition and how it reacts to a situation like this. It predates The Walking Dead and The Last of Us. The Last of Us being one of my favorite stories, not just in gaming, but ever of all time. So I get it. I get that you can have human condition storytelling with an infection apocalypse, or whatever you want to call it, zombie apocalypse, in the background. I 100% get it. But if you're going to tell that kind of story, you have to execute it well. And just because the last two movies exist doesn't mean that this executed well. Because this movie sucks. So, what's this movie about? Well, it's about a lot of things all at once. Don't get me wrong. It is an extremely well-made movie. Beautifully well-made. But it's one of the most incoherent movies I've seen in a long time. It has no idea what it wants to be. And now I've seen a lot of reviews say that for the first half hour to 40 minutes, it's the movie that you expect. But then afterwards, it's this artsy coming of age story movie. But I would argue that it's actually an artsy coming of age movie the entire way through, with only the beginning, the opening, being the movie that you expect. Now, that opening had me really pumped. I thought to myself, hey, okay, so they're kind of going for it a little bit here really early, but this is really cool. This is great. And then after that, it becomes something completely different. So at first, this movie introduces a really neat idea where society has sort of grown into this culture where you go out and kill your first infected when you come of age. And that's where we come to our new main characters here, this father and son. The father, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, figures his son Spike is ready to go out and finally get his first kill. So they go out, cross this land bridge from their village, go out into the mainland, and then that's where they go. This sequence here, where they're traveling to the mainland, has that poem that's in the trailer. And I don't know what they were going for. They're like cutting back and forth between the two of them walking and like some old-timey war footage of the Renaissance. Like if you wanted to do some kind of message of like, those are their ancestors and they're imitating them, like going into battle, and they're the descendants of those warriors. I mean, I guess, but it just did not come together cohesively at all. So that's the first interesting idea, right? Showing how society has formed a culture around the danger outside of their walls and how they've learned to cope with it and live with it and survive against it. This next one is also a really great idea, where they introduce new types of infected. They go out and they see there's these big bloater ones that crawl around on the ground. You know, they kind of look like me, and like they eat dirt and worms and stuff, and they make really disturbing noises like rare, rare when they're shot in the neck and whatever, right? And then there's these other ones, these big ones called the alphas. Now, okay, I've brought them up. I'm gonna just address it and get out of the way.
It's a penis!
I don't know.
A penis! It's a big dick!
There, I addressed it. Okay, moving on. So, they come across this alpha infected that is controlling this pack of infected, and he, sends them out to, chase the regular humans and what have you, and has this kill that he does over and over again. This guy could be super threatening, but they turn him into a joke later on in the movie. There's this like spine rip thing that he does. He does it 4 times. The first time he does it, it is pretty disturbing. He does it on a deer, and there's like this red filter over it, and like these infected are surrounding the deer. He, does the spine rip on the deer, and the infected start to kind of surround it, start eating it. It's a really effective scene. But then the actual act of that kill loses its luster because he does it like 3 more times. Around the 3rd time, he does it off screen, but there's no tension to it because that he's going to do it. It's the only way that he actually ends people in this movie is with that spine rip thing. It just loses its luster after a while. These things could be interesting if this movie didn't forget that they existed. This movie is this small, intimate story, and then every once in a while it goes, oh yeah, the infected, the whole, general premise of 28. Oh yeah, those are there. Let's go ahead and bring these in to go ahead and create some conflict. Then we'll go back to not knowing what we're doing. So I never thought I would actually say this in 2025, but I'm about to say it. This new 28 movie has the exact same problem that Lilo and Stitch did, where it just will not sit still. Remember how I mentioned in that video that moments can have impact if you let them linger for just a little bit longer than you would intend in the editing. The editing can do wonders in making something feel really impactful. But this movie is just overstylized, almost too much for its own good. For example, anytime Spike, the main kid, takes an arrow and shoots an infected in the head with it, it does the same effect where it, just stops and then blips around. And it does it every time. It just, you don't feel the weight of the violence like you did in the first 2 movies. It's not creative. It takes you out of it, and it's jarring. Then, on top of that as well, there's this moment that just like the marching scene that still really baffled me, where the father and the son, after their hunt, are going back home, and there's this wide night sky shot being done with this ethereal music that you would hear in a sort of art house film. But it's being done during a chase sequence where the father and son are running from the alpha, and the alpha is gaining on them, but it's during this music and this wide shot where they're running across the water to get home, and it's trying to show me this wide shot and this scenery while this chase is happening, and I couldn't help but think, what am I supposed to be feeling right now? Am I supposed to be taking in the terror and beauty of nature and how it's evolved without these humans interacting with it? It didn't make any sense. It was so confusingly incoherent. And then from this point, the father and son, of course, survive the chase. They're back home, celebrate Spike's first hunt being successful, even though it wasn't. And then some lore gets dropped, and they then go to a different movie again, where Spike hears about this legendary doctor out in the wilds that they avoided because I couldn't really understand why, but apparently because he was gathering dead bodies. I don't know. But he hears about this legendary doctor, and Spike is very concerned about his mother. She's having fits in the night. During the day, she's very incoherent and doesn't understand what's going on, and no one in the village knows what's wrong with her. And the dad knows, but he's not being very forward with it. He's not being very honest about it. So Spike, after having a fallout with his dad for this, takes his mom, goes back out into the wilderness to find this doctor. And right when I'm about to turn on this movie completely, Ralph Fiennes comes in as this doctor, and he's such an interesting character, and I love Ralph Fiennes in everything, and he's another addition to this movie introducing interesting ways that this culture has evolved with this infection or this apocalypse that has happened, where he like smears himself in iodine so the virus doesn't get him. And someone out there that does not live amongst the community would do that, especially a doctor would find new ways to keep the infection from getting to them. I found that so interesting. And then I stopped liking the movie because we get to this point where, and I'm going to spoil this, I don't care, I'm going to spoil this whole movie. They go to this doctor to find out what's wrong with Spike's mom, and through some examination, he concludes that she has cancer. And apparently she always knew, she just didn't know how to tell him. And then she, without even letting Spike, collect his thoughts or even try to comprehend all of this, decides that she's just gonna go ahead and die. And the doctor builds Spike up with some morphine. He takes the mom out and brings back her skull and goes to Spike and says, "Here you go." And Spike is oddly okay with this. Now, another thing I forgot to mention, because this movie goes in so many different directions, that pile of skulls you see in the trailer is supposed to be like this monument, this beautiful monument to the dead and remembering them, but it's such a creepy and stark image. Like, why would you do that? How is that supposed to be a beautiful thing? Whatever. So the doctor hands Spike his mom's skull. Spike looks at it like, whoa. And the doctor says, "Find a good place for her." And Spike climbs the pile of skulls and perches her right on top. Again, completely okay with all of this. And he doesn't have a fit, doesn't cry, he's just okay with it. And then Ralph Fiennes leaves, and I go back to not liking the movie anymore. This movie had the same effect on me that the Lilo and Stitch remake did, but in a worse sense, on a worse level. Where with Lilo and Stitch, I thought it looked pretty good, and I was kind of excited to actually see it because I thought it didn't look like a cynical cash grab. I went in, saw the movie, and came out of it liking it okay, but then over time just decided I just didn't like it. This one, with that trailer, which is one of the best trailers I've ever seen, I was hyped to see it, super hyped to see it, went into it, came out of it not liking it that much, but over time, I've come to just really hate it. It was as if Boyle and Garland wanted to make any movie other than a 28 movie. That's exactly what it feels like. And I don't know, man. I just wish this movie wasn't having an identity crisis. Okay, so finally, let's talk about that ending, which you probably by this point have heard a lot about. Okay, so you've probably heard that in the end, the tone completely changes and so-called Power Rangers show up. You may have heard that term. You may have heard these characters referred to as Power Rangers. And they might as well be that. I hated every minute of this ending sequence because it was so jarring and made me feel as if everything I watched beforehand was a complete farce, a complete joke. So in the opening of this movie, those kids, the thing you see in the trailer where the kids watching Teletubbies, that happens. Those kids don't exactly make it, except for one. He runs into this church to see his father, who is the priest in there. Priest is crazy. He wants to join the infected. The kid hides under the floorboards, and we close up on this shot with his cross medallion. So Spike is out in the wilderness because he's out there, and he gets chased by infected, like, someone out in the wilderness tends to do, to get chased by the infected. And when he's cornered, a fella comes up in a tracksuit, a clean tracksuit, by the way, wearing a cross medallion. Who is it? It's the boy, and he has some companions with him. And he says, "Why don't you go ahead and let us help you out with these fellas? How about we do that? How about we go ahead and help you out?" And they do that and proceed to do kung fu moves and parkour on the infected. And calling them Power Rangers is not that far from it. I swear to God, the only thing that was missing was them going, "Hyah! Yeah!" When they were flipping around and kung fu kicking these infected. It was absolutely ridiculous, and I don't care what it's supposed to mean. The execution of it and the tone was entirely stupid. I hated this movie so much. Look, if you like this movie, you'll like this movie, right? I'm not going to judge you for it. It is a very well-made movie, and the stuff that is actually 28 days later here is really good when this movie remembers that these infected exist in this world. But I'm not going to pretend to understand why you like it, because I won't. I'm sorry if this review has seemed kind of like scattered and quickly paced and maybe even slapped together, but the fact is, I find this movie hard to review because it itself gave me so much to talk about, but also nothing to grasp onto. There's so much that I want to say, but frankly, that would make this video way, way too long because I have so many issues with it, and yet I don't know how to articulate them because the movie itself didn't even know how to articulate its own story to me. All I know is that I came out of it really disappointed, and they're apparently gonna make this into a trilogy, and if they do, if it ends up being that we get 2 more of these in this vein with Spike, and it's still called 28 years later, something, or I guess the next one's called the Bone Temple, so there's gonna be another one, but if there's gonna be a 3rd one, I just hope that it's a lot more coherent than this, because the movie's tone could have been fine, but the story and its execution and that tone that they were trying to go for just wasn't cohesive. And I hope they can figure it out for the next 2. But if they're anything like this, I don't want them. Love them or hate them, those are my thoughts on 28 Years Later. What did you think of the movie if you saw it already? Have you seen 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later? What do you think of the zombie genre as a whole? Do you think that this movie brought it back again like 28 Days Later did it itself back in its day? Let me know down in the comments. Let's talk everything 28 Days Later, horror, zombies, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
That is one big pile of shit.